wanted to show the canvas bag that I started with the same design. You can see I still have a lot to do, but I took it out of the circle format and I just continued the design all the way up to the top of the canvas bag. So yeah, I'll post this when I get it finished and you can let me know what you think. So, you ready to paint a fun summer scene with me? All right, this is what you need to get started. So I have my round, wooden round, or you can do your canvas or a canvas bag or whatever design you'd like to do. So I have my carbon paper and my tracer. So I cut my tracer out just so I can line it up. I can kind of feel, you can cut the carbon paper too if it makes it easier, but I can kind of feel right where that board is. So I'm going to line it up. And then just with a pencil, you're going to trace over all the black lines. But you want to make sure that the dark side, see there's a dark side and a dull side, a shiny side. And the dull side, you have the shiny, darker side down. And then you're just going to want to trace. My pencil broke already, so I got it back up. So you want to go ahead and trace all those little lines. So you want to go ahead and trace all those little lines. I'm not tracing these dots, but I will go ahead and trace the hearts. You can trace the dots if you'd like. So you can kind of peek and see, make sure it's working. I have been known to trace a whole design without checking and to realize that the shiny side was not down. All right, there we go. Voila. I forgot a few rows of hearts, so I'm just going to kind of add those in real quick. If you do not have any carbon paper, it's all good. This is your trick. Okay. Sometimes we've done this in school, some might be familiar, but you want to take your pencil and turn your tracer backwards and use the side of the pencil. And you're just going to scribble on the back. You want to go wherever those lines are. It's kind of a fun process, kind of relaxing. Who doesn't like to scribble? Okay, so then once you have your scribbling down, again, you just do the same thing. You put it on your tracer, and then you just go ahead and trace over all of those lines. You can see it there. It's a lighter, but you can still see the mark. If it makes you feel better, you can kind of go back in and kind of darken those lines up a little bit. Okay. And you can also darken those lines up a little bit too, and it will make it darker. Make it a little bit darker. Okay? And there we go. Once you have your design, we can get started. So these are the things that you might want to grab. So you can pause the video if you'd like and make sure you grab your paint. Might want a paper towel and a Sharpie if you'd like a Sharpie to trace at the end. I have 2 paintbrushes, a medium one and a fine one. And you will want a cup of water. And I have a paper plate to put my paint on. And besides the colors that I listed, you may also want to grab a white and a black. So any white or black will do. All right, we can go ahead and get started. So I already have some paint on my palette. It's the same colors, and I'm going to add in some white. Just a smidgen of black too. And I'm going to start with the light blue, the Providence blue, and a little bit of the True Blue. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just move my camera down so you can kind of see. So this top blue right here is going to be the True Blue mixed with just a little bit of black. Not a lot. Black is super overpowering, so I'm just going to dip a little bit of black on my brush. And I like to mix my colors right on my canvas. So I still have some black on my brush, so I just went in and added more blue. That black goes a long ways. So I'm trying to stay within the lines, but I want to go right up to that line. I don't want any of my canvas showing. Okay. You can see over here, I don't have much black on my brush anymore, so I'm going to add just a smidgen more. I'm going to blend it all in there. You want to blend it all in there while the paint is still wet. Okay. You can kind of play around with it. Make it as dark or as light as you want. But I do want to make sure it is blue and not black, so kind of fixing this corner a little bit by adding in some more blue. Okay. All right. I am going to let this blue dry before I go in to my next layer. So while this is drying, it will dry really fast. I'm going to go ahead and color in my sun. So with the sun, I used the bright orange, the golden yellow, and yes, I even added just a smidgen of the honey brown. And I added in the honey brown just to kind of calm down that yellow because it is super bright. But if you like bright colors, don't add any honey brown. You can see the difference. Like one is super bright. So I'm just going to add in some yellow. You want to make sure that your brush is nice and clean. Get all of that blue. Otherwise your sun might end up being a little bit of green. So we're trying to stay away from the green sun. I'm going to go back in and add just a little bit of the honey brown. I'm going to mix it in with that yellow while it's still wet. And again, this is just going to calm that color down just a smidgen. Just to give it a more natural, maybe a little bit muted color. I got a little bit of green there, I'm just trying to get it out. And then I can kind of go back in and add in a little bit of orange if I want to brighten it up a little bit. I like putting orange on maybe just on one side. Okay, I'm going to rinse out my brush. All right, I can tell that this blue is mostly dry. I can tell because it's dull. Can you kind of see? It's a little shiny here, but other than that, it is mostly dry. I'm going to switch over to this brush. If you're using a larger canvas or a larger tracer, you can continue with this brush. It will work just fine. But being that this is a smaller project and I have to get into these little areas, I'm going to use a smaller brush. So now I'm just going to go into the light blue. Nothing fancy here, just straight light blue. I'm going to go ahead and fill all of this in. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward the video a little bit. All right. Here we go. How do your waves look? It's okay if they don't look perfect. They don't have perfect peaks. The black outline will help with that. Okay, I did want to make sure that there's no space between my blues, that it's all filled in nicely. So I'm just going through there and making sure there's no weird spaces in there. Okay. Now this medium blue that I have right here, with this small brush, I'm going to mix my true blue, my Petoskey blue. Sorry, it's the Provence blue. You can mix it right on your plate, right here. Scoop up some blue, scoop up some this blue, and kind of mix it here. Or you can mix it right on your palette, which I tend to usually do anyway. So the idea is you want it a little bit darker than the middle wave, just so it stands out some. Okay. Between those blues. So I'm going to start with some orange. I already have orange on my plate. And I'm going to add in a little bit of this almandine. And again, I'm using this color to kind of calm that orange down a little bit. And I'm going to start over here on this side. And that is way too light. So I'm going to add in some more orange. And again, you can make it as bright or as dull as you'd like. Adding a little bit more straight orange just to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, so next, this little space right in between, you can add in some of the vintage pink. And the pink, I like to add a little bit of orange into it too. So now it becomes like a pinkish orange. And while I have that same color on my brush, I'm going to just skip this big area and go on to this next color. You can kind of turn it a little bit, just to keep my pattern every other one. I'm gonna make this big chunk right here. And I covered over my hearts, but you can kind of see them a little bit behind that pink. One little trick that you can do if you don't want to cover over your hearts, you can use a Sharpie and kind of trace over your hearts. All right, I'm going to rinse out my brush and go back to that orangey color. So this is straight orange. You can kind of see the difference. This is a little bit duller. So add in just a little bit that muted tan. You can kind of see my Sharpie's coming through. You can still see my hearts. see my pencil lines too, so that's okay. I find it easier to kind of rotate my little wooden sign. And then don't forget this little area right here. All right, there we go. There's all of our colors. Now I'm going to let it dry. And then once it's dry, then we can go back over with our Sharpie. If you don't want to use your Sharpie, you can use your paintbrush, your small paintbrush, and do a black line. I do suggest watering down your black just a little bit. And that kind of helps with the lines so that it makes them nice and smooth. Like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but if you don't want to do this, let it dry. And a Sharpie, like I said, a Sharpie works really well. But if you don't let it dry first, you'll ruin your Sharpie. Last thing with the black is to do the hearts. Let me show you a couple little tricks to do the hearts. Don't know why I rinsed out my brush. Now I need black again. Okay, so with the small brush, you can kind of stamp your brush down like this and kind of fill it in. And just kind of stamp. I'm just stamping and then just kind of pulling it to a tip. Let me do it over here where I don't have it trace very well. So I just stamp and pull, stamp and pull, and then you can kind of go in and fill it in a little bit if you need it to be a little bit chunkier hearts. All right, how'd we do? Did we get all the hearts done? Did anybody notice that on my tracer, I forgot to do hearts right there? So I added them on this one. If there's anything that kind of bugs you, let it dry, and then you can come back and fix it. So right here, I have a little pencil mark and some little messiness going on right there. So now that it's dry, I can go back in with my orange. And if you add a little bit of white, it will help the paint become a little bit more opaque. And it will help you make those mistakes a little bit. Cover those mistakes. Those happy little accidents. And kind of clean up those hearts a little bit. Well, this is all drying. I'm gonna go and add in some of those white highlights. So again, I'm just watering it down just a little bit. Just thinning down that white, just a smidgen. And then I'm just gonna add in just a little bit of white detail here in my waves. Just for fun. Kind of makes a little bit of contrast there. I'm gonna make sure there's no blue on my brush. Then I'm gonna go ahead and make these little fun highlights. So I've got a little dot. It's really fun to do like a dot at the back of your brush. And do a dot. I'm gonna do a dot. Just gonna kind of do where my dots are, then I'll come back and do my lines. I'm gonna wait and do dots on this one because I have to fix that one. Now do 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna wait and do the dots on that one too. Gonna let that dry. Now I'm gonna do some cute little dots right over here. And some dots along the sun. Dots are kind of fun. You can make as many or as little as you want. Okay. Now the dots are done. I'm going to go back in with my brush and do those lines that were there between the dots. Okay, and then we can do the same thing with the black. There's a couple little dots here. And there was one right along right here. All right, I'm gonna just clean up this little area. There you go. Well, what do you think? How did yours turn out? Well, thanks again for painting with me. Hopefully you got a couple little tidbits and maybe learned how to fix a couple mistakes. And yeah, if you go ahead and paint this design, I would love to see it. So post it in the comment below. And yeah, so next month, hopefully we'll do it again. Another free paint night, and we'll see what kind of design I come up with. So have a great night. Thanks again for painting with me.